let's turn to the annual meeting of the NASD OTC Securities Exchange, which was held last Friday to review its operations and activities for the past year, 2020. But as the new year, 2021, progresses, it looks like the OTC platform is waxing even stronger on a number of fronts, making history as the first exchange to trade the shares of another exchange on its platform in Nigeria. That was some 2 months ago in April. Joining me for a chat around these current developments is Bola Ajomale, the Managing Director and CEO of NASD OTC. Good evening to you, sir. Thanks for seeing you here on the show.
Hi, Boston. How are you doing?
It's good to see you since that day in April when you listed the NGX, or you admitted the NGX. Give us some highlights into that. Let's start from there.
We saw very rapid trading from the very minute it came into the market. There was a huge backlog of securities of traders who wanted to trade those shares. So the very minute it came into the market, trading started. And it has actually been trading very consistently. Today was one of the slowest days. We've seen about 6 billion being traded in those securities over that period of time. So there's been a lot of activity. There has, however, been a bit more sell in the net, a bit more sell pressure than buy pressure. So the price did change from 25 when we brought it into 19. But I mean that's the market. Until that backlog is cleared, it will find its own equilibrium, which is that's the beauty of having a market like ours. Securities find their equilibrium fairly quickly, and they settle where they're supposed to be. So we're looking forward to that settled price.
Let's talk about your annual meetings of the OTC. What are the highlights of it, really? What were the main items on the agenda, by the way?
The main items of the agenda, really, it was what most people look forward to is a dividend. Unfortunately, last year was probably one of the most difficult years in the history of the OTC market. It was a very difficult year. So at the end of the year, we were very happy to have closed the year with a lot of advances in technology, more structures in place that would ensure the continuity of the market, and also all the new rules and structures that were put down to ensure that the market runs efficiently. So the highlight of the meeting really was to change some directors, introduce some new directors into the company, also re-elect some other ones. And essentially it was the cap of a difficult year and the recognition of a very interesting and exciting year into this one.
Yes, very, very interesting, difficult, but very difficult 2020. You spoke about operations and the rules of the exchange. Give us some highlights into that, insight into how you scale through using because I'm sure the building or your offices were shut for a number of months.
Yeah. So last year gave us the opportunity to actually truly deliver a remote market, which is where our vision has always been. So there was a period when there wasn't a single person in the office, but we still continued operations without losing a single minute. And then, very quickly after that, we actually did a full implementation of a new trading platform. And if you know the history of changing trading platforms, it tends to be it can be very tricky sometimes, even when you're physically present. So to run that change of software and trading platform, even remotely, and to get it done on time as well, I think it was probably one of our highlights. Now, the new system is an automated matching engine, so it ensures that there's absolute integrity in the transactions. The next step that we're going on to now is actually to tight couple it into the depository, and in that case, you then get real-time transactions. So last year was a time when we were able to sit back and get every single thing right about how the market operates. And then we started this year, and as you see, as been announced, one of the first things to hit us was a very large chunk of the NGX shares, which is a very significant addition to the market. And then recently, we added again 11 PLC, which is another massive company that came into the market, and Capital Bancorp. And so because of the new technology that we're using, we're able to attract even more securities to come into the market, which is a really great thing for us. We're quite happy about it.
What about rules for members and for listed issuers?
So regarding rules, we were able to get rules in place we changed our rules, or we added to our rules to allow dealers to trade proprietary for themselves once they are properly recognized at SEC. And we actually got a rule passed through SEC, or SEC approved a rule that allows us to deal with dealers. So they trade proprietary only for their own accounts and not for clients. It's going to be a very interesting thing because they are also, again, are the most active traders on some of these securities. We are in the process of getting some rules out on commercial paper. Again, it falls in line with our strategic direction, which is not so much to increase the number of, should I say, instruments in terms of derivatives and so on, but to broaden the market so that we can democratize it to the hands of the common man, which is where we see the real growth, as opposed to creating more and more sophisticated instruments. So all the rules that we're getting in place are following that thrust.
Well, again, are the rules, are the NASD OTC, how does it pair side by side with other exchanges in terms of how tight, how transparent it makes it? For example, you look at Double One PLC, which self-delisted from NGX and now came over to the OTC, NASD.
Mm-hmm. So it depends on the focus of the market. The first focus of NASD is to ensure that investors get the benefits of full responsibility of brokers. So there's a lot of focus on responsibility of brokers as opposed to adding another layer of regulation on top of issuers. We believe that the Securities and Exchange Commission has already imposed that layer of regulation. So the OTC markets are not structured essentially to add another layer to issuers. They are structured to make sure that transactions have absolute integrity and there's transparency behind them, which is what we are delivering. And it's also operating on the belief that if you invest in a company, the mere fact that the company is having a hard time, it doesn't mean you don't have the right to sell it. You don't lose your right to sell a security once the company has a hard time. In fact, that is the kind of company some people are looking to buy so that they can turn the company around. So we create a market where you have turnarounds, where you have great companies that are testing the market, where you have growth happening, and at the same time where you have companies saying, okay, we're scaling back from having this number of shareholders to a smaller number of shareholders, and we provide that liquidity and the conduit for those kind of things to happen. Okay. So in terms of our rules, the focus of our rules is geared more towards making sure this market has integrity and it runs on a pristine basis, as opposed to saying the issuers must follow certain rules. Okay,
so the rules are more around the dealers and the process rather than the issuers.
Correct.
Now, but again, I'm sure when you do an annual meetings and from time to time, the executives of those unlisted securities speak to you, what are their chief concerns in the market and the economy?
Well, much of what you hear from everyone, foreign exchange, getting the industrial base, and I heard you earlier on speaking about the vice president meeting with the OPS. That is absolutely critical because that group of people are concerned that if they are not able to generate a product, if they're not able to build value add into their products and export them, then they fall behind. The country falls behind in terms of its foreign exchange, so they are hampered again in importing. And at the same time, they fall behind as well in their ability to generate an income for themselves. And so getting the infrastructure right is critical to most producers.
Yes.
Getting access to the raw materials is very critical to the producers.
Okay, let's continue this conversation after the break. NASD Chief Bola Ajomale will get back to you. Stand by, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Bola Ajomale, the CEO at NASD OTC Securities Exchange, squawking with us about its trading platform and the year 2021 so far. Bola, you were talking about, just before the break, about the concerns about some of the issuers. And of course, you have quite a few of these big names, like Friesland Wamco, which is one of the largest milk and dairy food producers in Nigeria. So this is as big as it can get. So in terms of this issue, on the monetary fiscal side, do you think these companies are beginning to feel pressured by the overall environment, getting listed on the market and all of that?
Well, It's a pity that Nigeria hasn't revalued in a while, in quite a long while. So yes, the pressure is continually there because you are the level of expectation of exportation is a bit lower than the amount that we're importing. So there's been a constant need for foreign exchange, and that has put pressure on these companies. So yes, they are feeling a bit of pressure. Some of it is dampened or not as obvious because of the level of inflation that we have. And so if you put some time into generating your products, by the time you take them to market, you're selling them at a slightly higher price. And that's only because it's moving in line with inflation. But in actual fact, in real terms, you're not doing as well as you were before. So the numbers might look bigger, but in actual fact, what it's able to purchase for you or to replace for you is probably a bit less. So these companies are beginning to feel that pressure. I would say mainly those in the financial industry are the ones who probably feel it a bit less, but those who are in manufacturing, and many of whom are those who we deal with on the NASD market, they are beginning to see a lot of pressure on them because of that, yes.
Let me ask you a personal question. How easy or difficult is it to run a securities exchange under the current economic circumstances?
You keep your costs low. You manage your costs, and at the same time, you keep a very firm focus on the fact that you're not only in the business to make a commission on trades. You're actually in the business in order to try and assist in growing the economy. And so we have a focus on growth companies. We have a focus on democratizing, as I mentioned before, democratizing investment opportunities. We have a focus on making it easier for investors to get in and out of investments. So if you keep a focus on that, then there's a driver there, and there's a need, and you can see the gap you're filling. In terms of a continual increase in the value of shares, that's not happening, and it shouldn't really happen where the economy is going through a difficult time. So we can see the value that we're adding, and that keeps us going, absolutely.
Well, here we are at the close to the end of the first half of the year. So are you reviewing your corporate strategies, your outlook for the year in line with the current realities? And in what areas are you doing this at the NASD OTC?
So when you say, are you reviewing and at what level, it seems like you've already assumed that we are. But in actual fact, we are not. We had always had a belief that our operations must expand the economy, and our operations are dealing with not only the good and great times, but they are dealing with times when people need capital, what are we going to do? And so we have sustained that, and we have retained it. And unlike some other markets that can turn, we're very nimble. We can turn on a dime, but at the same time, in our nimbleness, we must make sure that every single turn and every opportunity, every place we turn to, we are creating the value that we want to. So we did have a focus a bit earlier on digital assets. More than ever, it is becoming relevant to the economy that we are going to run digital assets in this economy. CBN at one point said it was not a good idea and it was actually banned, but they are now coming through with their own instrument by the end of the year. We had already started planning doing that from last year, and so there's nothing to review there. We're on the right track. So a lot of the things that we thought we were going to do from January, the need for them has just been re-emphasized, and there really hasn't been very much that we planned to do in January and December last year that we have to at half year say we're not doing it anymore. In fact, it's the other way around, where we're saying we have to speed up on these things and roll them out, because more than ever the demand has been confirmed.
You're going Coinbase at NASD OTC?
Certainly not Coinbase. Certainly not Coinbase. We will not trade cryptocurrencies, but there are other things to do in the digital space that an OTC market can easily fill the gaps for, which is what we're seeking to do. So no, we're not going into cryptocurrencies. We do not have the power, nor do I think it's appropriate for us as an OTC market to go into that, but there are other areas that will be covered by NASD.
Are you shopping for new companies to list, and in what specific sectors are you hunting?
To introduce into the market, we are always looking for new companies. We think that the focus will mainly be on the manufacturing companies, but we see a lot of opportunity in the fintech space. Many of them are raising capital. Many of them are raising capital in foreign currency, and then the investors are looking to offload at some point or another into the Nigerian market. We believe that the OTC market would be a great place for them to do that through. We see a lot of private equity activity that took place 10 years ago, 8 years ago, that are coming into maturity that now want to offload. We are seeing opportunities in BPE, for example, where they have a lot of securities that the government has been holding that they want to sell. So there are quite a few areas where we can see securities being introduced into the market that we think the OTC market would be the best and the most appropriate place for them to come in through.
Bola Ajomale, I can smell where you're going. We appreciate your time on the show tonight. As always, Bola Ajomale, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer at NASD OTC. Thank you very much, and wish you all the best. Thank you so much.